So let's talk about Wheelock chapter 4. We're going to cover second declension neuter forms, adjectives, the present of some, predicate nominatives, and substantival adjectives. So it's a full chapter here. So, second declension neuter nouns and adjectives. A lot of what's in this chapter mirrors the last chapter's information about second declension masculine nouns and adjectives, but the difference here is that we're dealing with neuter nouns and adjectives. That's it. Because the neuter forms we're looking at are second declension, the final stem vowel is going to be O, and so that's why these neuters are second declension rather than first declension. Recall first declension nouns have a stem vowel that ends with an A. All right, so these are like the masculine nouns, they have an O stem vowel. Sometimes that O becomes a U, and sometimes the O is obscured, and we're going to see that here. So let's take a look at the paradigm. The stem vowel plus case ending is going to combine to create these forms. So the nominative and vocative are the same, and it's and so this is what develops from an original OM. That O weakens to U. Genitive singular E, dative singular O, accusative singular again from and then ablative singular is O with the macron, so it's long. And so our forms are donum, and this is using the noun that means gift. So donum, doni, dono, donum, dono. Okay, so the nominative vocative is the gift or o gift, genitive of the gift, dative to or for the gift, donum the gift as the accusative direct object, and dono by, with, or from the gift. Now the plural forms here for nominative and vocative end with a, so dona, the gifts or o gifts, orum, and so donorum, of the gifts, is, donis, to or for the gifts, accusative a, dona, the gifts, and is, donis, by, with, or from the gifts. So some things to notice here in our forms, observations on the paradigms. Number one, the real stem vowel O is weakened to U in two forms, and technically three, because these are the two forms I'm thinking of, but nominative and vocative singular could be counted as two forms, and then accusative singular here. All right, so you see the O of the stem vowel obscured there through weakening to a U. And then the nominative and vocative, as we expect for most of our nouns, are identical to each other. And that's why I've put them on the same line here, nominative and vocative singular and nominative and vocative plural a. Now, that's not unexpected, but what's important here for neuters is that all neuter words have the same form in the nominative and accusative cases within the same number. So the singular nominative and accusative forms will be the same, and the plural nominative and accusative forms will be the same. So if you take a look over here, we have the nominative and accusative forms both having and so donum for nominative and donum for accusative singular. And then on the plural forms, we have nominative and accusative plurals are the same case ending, a, and you'll notice that the form on the noun itself, dona, dona, nominative and accusative plural, those are the same. So they're ambiguous, so how are you going to be able to tell the difference between them? You have to pay attention to the context. All right. Now, one other comment here about forms is that nouns that end in ius and ium, ius would be masculine and ium would be neuter nouns. Whenever these have a genitive singular form, it's going to end with the short I from the E and E here, followed by the genitive case ending, which is the long I, so I-E. But sometimes those two vowels are going to simplify and leave only the long I. And so I've got two examples here. The neuter noun concilium, and it's genitive singular. You drop the and you add the long I, right? So concilii, and then the alternate form where the I is dropped is concilii. Now, filius is a masculine form. So notice that its nominative form ends with an S here. Neuter forms in the second declension end with an M. But its genitive singular is filii, filii, and then if this I drops out or simplifies to just the long I, you can see fili, fili. All right. Now, this does happen in Latin, but in our textbook, the authors will try to keep the basic form here so that it's not confusing. Now look at 1.4. We now can give you a full case ending chart for first and second declension nouns. And I've got that here. Just want you to see that the masculine, feminine, and neuter forms here in the singular chart, I've put the numbers 2, 1, 2 here. And the reason for that is that the masculine forms here are second declension. The feminine forms here are first declension, and then the neuter forms are second declension. And on the plural, masculine forms, again, are following second declension pattern, the feminine following first, neuter following second. Now, you have to keep in mind that there are some first declension nouns which are masculine. They will follow this first declension feminine pattern, even though they are technically masculine. Nauta being an example of a masculine first declension form. But aside from that sort of thing, usually these are the genders and declension patterns. Okay, so we now have the full set. And I want you to keep this in front of you. I will create a separate handout that just has case endings like this so that you can maybe stick it in a not a screen protector, but a paper protector, and just have that handy as you do homework. All right. So us, eo, o, e for masculine, e, orum, isos, is, e for the plural. That's our second declension pattern. Feminines, I, a, plural, I, arum, is, as, is, I. And then neuter, eo, o, and a, orum, is, a, is, a. So you've got all of those there in front of you. Now, what I want you to do is to look at the nouns here. I'm going to just make a point, keeping the chart in mind. First of all, we have amicum, belli, pericula, and porta. Okay? Identify the case ending. How many possibilities are there from the chart? And let's just start with amicum. Now, technically speaking, the M here is the case ending. The U is the O stem vowel from the noun. That's actually part of the noun stem. The real case ending is just M. And if we're just looking at the M case ending, I want you to notice that we have an M here, we have an M here, we have M's here, here, and here. We also have M's here, here, and here. So just noticing the M at the end, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 possibilities for what a final M on a case ending could be. Now that seems rather hopeless, doesn't it? Who wants to have to think through 8 possible forms? And so that brings me to the second question here. How does knowing the gender and declension pattern of the noun help simplify finding the case ending? If I told you that amicum is a masculine second declension noun, then what would I do here? What would I get to eliminate? I'd get to eliminate the feminine forms, right? So all of those would go away, and the neuter forms would go away because we know that this is a masculine second declension noun. And that leaves me with the masculine second declension column. And so now I'm down to just two possibilities. Well, I don't have the oru before the M here, so I can get rid of that possibility. I really only have one once I know the gender and the declension pattern of the noun. So it helps to really simplify the process, doesn't it? Now let's delete all this stuff, and let's do the same here with belly. Belly, and remember these are nouns, not adjectives. So we do have an adjective that has the bell form, but this is the noun. Okay. Now look at the ending here. This is a long I. So where do I see that? I see it here. I see it here. I see it here and here, and that's it. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 possibilities here. But what if I told you that this is a neuter second declension noun? Once you know it's neuter second declension, what can I do? Well, I can eliminate that because that's masculine column, right? And I can eliminate these possibilities here. So among my neuter, that's the only place I need to look for this case ending. And there's only one place where it is, right? So that makes this genitive singular. Let me go ahead and write that down. So that's genitive singular. With amicum, we learned that that was accusative singular. Okay. Now, let's ask ourselves about pericula. Okay. Pericula. This has an A on the end. So where do I find A for case ending? Don't have any here. I do have the feminine first declension nominative form. And remember, it's an A that doesn't have the macron here, so it's the short A. So vocative there. No A's here in neuter. For masculine, no A's. Feminines, no A's. Neuters, have A there, A there, A there. Okay? So what I see here is that it could be feminine, singular A, or it could be a neuter plural, case ending A. So how do I know which it is? Well, if I told you that this noun is a neuter second declension noun, then what would we be able to do? We'd be able to eliminate the feminine possibilities, right? And then we're left with this. And of course, we have no context, so we don't really know whether it's nominative, accusative, or vocative plural. So it could be any of those: nominative, accusative, vocative plural. Okay. And then last, I have porta. Porta. Let me get rid of my X's here. What do we see with porta? Porta has an A, just like pericula had an A. So there were 5 possibilities. I'd have to think through all 5, right? But what if you knew that this was a feminine first declension noun? Would that help you simplify the process? Absolutely, right? Because it's feminine, I can eliminate all of my neuter possibilities and look only in the feminine first declension column. And I've got 2 possibilities here, right? This could be nominative or vocative singular among the feminine first declensions. Okay, so knowing your gender and case endings, knowing your gender and your declension pattern, and knowing the declension patterns means then you'll know the case endings that that declension pattern uses. These things are very, very, very helpful. And we absolutely need to be able to identify then gender and case ending if possible. Now, let's say that Dr. Marshall didn't give you the gender and declension pattern like I did. How would you go about trying to determine the gender of the noun if you didn't already know it? And here is where learning your lexical forms, the dictionary form, and the genitive case ending that goes with it really matters. Let's think about this word that means friend, amicum. What is the lexical form of amicum? I'm going to jot it down here for you. So here we have the lexical form. The lexical form is amicus, and the lexical form is always nominative. Okay? Don't forget that. It's always nominative singular. And then its genitive is amici. So when you see the followed by the S is the nominative masculine singular case ending. And that's how we're going to be able to guess when we don't know the gender. Okay, nominative masculine singular. So if my nominative form has an us ending, that's nominative masculine singular, and it follows the second declension. Second declension nouns have an o stem that weakens sometimes to a u, and especially note that the genitive singular form, which is what you're always given second, this has the long I. And we know that an us nominative form and an e genitive form, these belong to masculine second declension forms, right? Now let's take a look at belly. Belly's lexical form is the following. It's bellum and belly. So remember, the lexical form is always the nominative singular form. But what gender is the nominative singular form when it's an M and not an S, as in amicus? That's right, it's a neuter singular nominative form. And notice that its genitive case is belli with the long I. So what gender is a noun that ends with and has a genitive singular I? Well, that's neuter in which declension pattern? That's neuter in the second declension pattern. Okay, so that is that's very helpful. What about the third noun? It's pericula. So and porta, we can just go ahead and talk about both of these. The question is this a the feminine singular a that we learned for first declension, or is it the neuter a at the end of some of the neuter forms? And for porta, is that the feminine singular a, or is it the neuter a? And so knowing your lexical form is really going to help. What is the lexical form for pericula? If you were to look at your vocab list from the chapter, you're going to find that this is the lexical form. We have periculum and periculi. Periculum, periculi. So you see the ending here for nominative singular, and its genitive is a long I. Lexical form is always nominative singular. So where do I see nominative singular and genitive I or e? It's neuter second declension. So this noun has to be neuter because of the nominative ending being Okay, so that's neuter. All right, and then last we have this word porta. Porta. So what's the lexical form of porta? We look up our vocab word porta, we're going to find the lexical form is porta. That's always nominative singular. And the genitive form that's given with it is portai. So where do I see a and I for nominative and genitive singular? Go back to your chart. Nominative and genitive singular, a and I, are found in feminine first declension. So if I know then that that is a feminine noun here, then I know that the ahs I see cannot be the neuter case ending ah. All right. So anytime I see an ah for a noun that I've learned the lexical form and know it's feminine, then any ahs are going to be in the feminine column. I don't need to even consider the neuter ahs. Okay. So this is just really trying to illustrate a significant lesson. When learning vocab, make sure you learn the gender, the lexical form, which is nominative singular, the genitive singular ending when it's provided, and this will help you know which declension pattern the noun will follow. Okay? All right. Now, Under point 2, I provide the full 212 adjective paradigm. Many adjectives like magnus, magna, magnum, meaning large or great, follow what we can call a 212 pattern. The masculine form is second declension. That's why I call it 2 here. The feminine is going to follow the first declension. That's why the number 1 is here. And then the neuter form of magnus, which is magnum, this will follow second declension. Okay? And when this is the situation, the case endings of the adjective are going to look exactly like the noun case endings that we saw above. So we have us, eo, o, right? Magnus, magni, magno. For the feminine, first declension, magna, a. Neuter, magnum. Notice the neuter nominative ends with an M. Masculine nominative ends with an S. Magnum, magni, magno, magnum, magno, magnum. Okay? And then my plural forms. Again, these follow all of the same declension patterns. So magnus, we could call a 212 adjective because its masculine, feminine, and neuter forms follow second, first, second declension in that alternating pattern. I don't want to read through this necessarily. I just want you to be able to see it there. And so what's going to happen is when the attributive adjectives are modifying nouns, you're going to find that if it's a masculine noun, it's going to be one of the forms of the second declension masculine adjectives. Okay? If the noun's feminine, then its matching adjective has to be from the feminine first declension column. All right? And then if the noun is a neuter noun, then its attributive adjective will come from the neuter column. All right. So let's remember a couple of things here about attributive adjectives. Number 1, the rule for attributive adjectives is not that the adjective must agree with its noun in declension pattern. There's not a requirement that the declension pattern match. Rather, the rule is that the attributive adjective must agree with the noun in case, gender, and number. Okay, that's the requirement. They don't have to have matching declension patterns, just matching case, gender, number. And I've given you 3 examples here to illustrate the point. Here we have amicus. Amicus. This is nominative, masculine, singular. And so its adjective has to be nominative, masculine, singular as well. Notice amicus follows what declension pattern? With that U, which was originally an O, that's second declension pattern, right? And magnus likewise, because it's got a U here, that's second declension as well. So here, not only does amicus and magnus both match case, gender, number, they also happen to match the same declension pattern as well. But look at the second example. I have nauta, which means sailor. All right. By the way, amicus magnus is a great friend. Okay. Nauta magnus, that's a great sailor or a big sailor. All right. These are both nominative, masculine, singular as well. They match case. This is a requirement for attributive adjectives. They do match case. But what declension pattern does nauta follow? Nauta is following first declension. Now, it is a masculine noun that happens to follow first declension. So it is masculine, and it is nominative singular here, but it's not second declension because nauta follows first declension. Magnus, on the other hand, even though it is nominative, masculine, singular, it follows the second declension, which is a different declension pattern than nauta follows, even though they do agree in case, gender, number. So here, they don't match declension pattern, but they do match case, gender, number. And then porta magna. Porta is feminine, singular, and this is nominative as well. And this is a great door or a great entry, a great gate. So, what declension pattern does porta follow? That's first declension. What declension pattern does magna follow when it's feminine? It also follows first declension. So, in this case, the declension patterns of the noun and the adjective do match each other, but that's not what's required. What's required is that they both be the same case gender number, and they are. Okay, that's what's important. All right, let's go on to point 3. Here we start talking about verbs. We learned the present infinitive and the present indicative of the word sum. Sum, it means I am, and the present infinitive of the forms of be, the present infinitive is esse, esse. Okay, so you just need to learn that. Esse means to be. That infinitival form is different from the way the infinitives have looked that we learned in chapter 1, right? Laudare, to love, monere, to advise or warn. Okay, this is esse. So that's to be. Now let's look at the present indicative forms of sum. These are unpredictable. They're irregular, just like our English verb to be is irregular. I am, you are, he is, right? Those are very different from each other. And so are these. So first singular is sum, I am. Second singular, es, you are. Third singular, est, he, she, it is. And est can also mean there is. There is something. If there's a singular noun with est, it can predicate the existence of it. First person plural, somos, we are. Second plural, estis, you are, y'all are. And third plural, sunt, they are, or it could also mean there are, indicating the existence or presence of something. All right, so don't forget that these third singular and third plural forms can be used for existential sorts of statements like that. So here's an example. Sunt multi agricolae. So here I have a third plural form of sunt. So that means it's going to mean there are whatever the nominative plural subject noun is. Multi agricolae. Multi is nominative, masculine, plural. It's following second declension, but agricolae is following first declension, still masculine plural. It's just one of those masculine nouns that follows first declension. So most first declension nouns are feminine, some are masculine. Okay, so we would translate sunt multi agricolae as there are many farmers. And that brings us to point number 4, predicate nouns and adjectives. The verb sum is not a transitive verb. And transitive verbs take direct objects. Since this verb's not transitive, it cannot take a direct object. So when I see it, I'm not going to be looking for an accusative noun. What does the verb sum do? It joins the subject, and I will abbreviate subject with capital S, to a noun or an adjective by way of identification, classification, or description. And let me give you an example of each of these. Let's say I want to say something about Julius. I could say Julius is my friend. Here I'm using the copular verb is, in Latin that's going to be a form of sum. Okay, Julius is my friend. And what I'm doing is I'm making an assertion about Julius's identity. I'm drawing an identity relationship between the noun Julius and the noun phrase my friend. Julius and my friend are one and the same. They refer to the same person or entity. Okay, so in Latin that would be Julius est amicus meus. This would be nominative case, as subjects are. But what we'll also see is that the noun or the adjective that is part of the assertion using a form of sum is likewise nominative case. Okay, so Julius is my friend. That's identifying, drawing an identity relationship between these two things, the subject and the noun here. Now, my second type of sentence, Julius is a man. Here, a man is a generic category. It's a generic class. And what I'm asserting about Julius is that he belongs to a class of people called man. So that's why I would call this a an assertion about classification. So Julius est vir. Julius is a man, so he fits into the category of man. When I have an identity relationship, I could reverse these, and I would be saying the same thing. Julius is my friend is Julius, right? But if I reverse these, I don't quite get the same thing, because not every man is Julius, right? Julius is just one instantiation of a man, of the category man. Now, the last example, Julius is good. Here I'm using an adjective and not a noun, as I did in the first two, and the adjective is providing a description. So I'm giving a characterization or a description of Julius. So Julius est bonus. Julius est bonus, right? And again, all of these are nominative case. And the subjects are all nominative as well. Now, 4.2. The subject is what the sentence is about. And here, Julius is the subject of these sentences, right? So that's the subject. That's what the sentence is about. And the part of the sentence that includes the verb, and which will be a linking verb or a copular verb, such as sum or est, and then what is asserted about the subject, the noun or the adjective, is often described as the predicate. Okay, so we have the subject and we have the predicate. The noun or the adjective is usually called a predicate noun or a predicate adjective, and it's also called the predicate nominative because that noun or adjective must be in the nominative case, as we saw up above. The subject as well will be in the nominative case, but this is the nominative case form that's in the predicate. It's in the part of the sentence that has the be, the form of be, and then any attendant nouns, adjectives, and modifiers. The predicate nominative can also be described, and I do sometimes describe it that way, as the subject complement. So I'll abbreviate that SC. So S is subject, and SC would be subject complement. Okay, so you'll hear me use that term as well. Okay, our last section here is on substantive adjectives. Adjectives are describing words. These are words that describe or modify a noun, and they have three functions. We have learned about two of them so far. We learned about attributive adjectives. Remember, these accompany a noun. They're side by side with a noun. Usually they come after a noun, and they agree with that noun in case, gender, number. And in this chapter, we've learned about predicate adjectives, where you have a form of the verb sum, and they form the subject complement with that copular verb sum, or the linking verb sum. Now, adjectives can also function as substantives. What's a substantive? A substantive is a word that functions like a noun. A substantive is a word that functions like a noun. So when the adjective, which is not a noun, functions like it is a noun, then we could say that it is substantival. Okay? So adjectives are not nouns, but when they act like nouns or function like nouns, they become substantival adjectives. In effect, a substantival adjective is an attributive adjective that lacks a noun to modify, and therefore, the adjective takes on the noun function or the substantival function. Let's consider the adjective good, which in Latin is bonus, bona, bonum. All right? So the boys are good. The boys are good. What kind of adjective function do I have here in the boys are good? Well, I'm making a predication about them. I'm asserting a description of the boys, right? So this is a predicate use of the adjective. So here I'll put adj here up above good because it is an adjective, and it's what I'm asserting about the boys. And in Latin, pueri sunt boni. Okay, again, nominative subject, and then this is the adjective functioning as the predicate. Okay, now look at the second example. The good boys love good friends. So here is good and good. Notice that there are nouns and adjectives here, right? Good friends. The adjective is telling you what kind of boys and what kind of friends are involved. What sort of adjective use is this? This is these are both attributive. Okay, so they tell you what kind of boys, what kind of friends. So they accompany the noun. And so in Latin, we see pueri boni, boys good, in the plural, good boys. Amant, love. And then in accusative case, amicos bonos, uh, love friends good, love good friends. Okay, so my adjective is directly modifying my noun here in an attributive way, but there is a noun that accompanies the adjective here. Now take a look at the last example. We have the good love good friends. The good love good friends. So here's an adjective, good. Okay, how is that adjective functioning? Notice that there's no noun immediately in front of or behind good. It's just the adjective by itself. There's no verb to be here. I'm not asserting that something is good. Rather, I'm asserting that good something or someone love good friends. Now, this good has a noun right beside it. Okay, and it's modifying that noun. This second good is attributive. This first good is functioning as what I would call a substantival adjective. It is functioning like a noun. What noun role does it play? The good, love, this is functioning as the subject, okay? That is the subject of the verb love. Who loves? The good love, good friends. And in Latin, boni is my adjective functioning substantively, okay? So the boni, the good, in the plural, right? Notice this is nominative, plural, and masculine. The good love good friends. All right, so this adjective doesn't have a noun to modify, and that's why it's taking on the role of the noun. It's functioning substantively. Now, to translate a substantival adjective, you will sometimes have to add an extra word to clarify that the adjective functions like a noun. Which extra words you use depend on context and the gender and number of the substantival adjective. How we translate the adjectives bonus, bona, bonum, good, is going to depend then on some factors. So let's take a look at these four. We'll wrap up with this. Here I have bonus, amat, amicum. Somebody loves the friend or his friend. Okay, that's a masculine, singular, and accusative noun. All right, this is a direct object. Now here I have my adjective, and this adjective is masculine singular. It is a substantival adjective. I could say the good loves his friend, okay? I could say that, but when I say that in English, when in English we use a substantival adjective by the default, that's usually plural. We usually conceptualize a substantival adjective as plural. If I say the good, the bad, and the ugly came, that usually means plural, right? Good people, bad people, and ugly people came. So if my substantival adjective is singular, then I really want to specify with an additional word that that's a singular entity. Bonus is masculine singular, so I could say something like the good one, or I could say the good man. Or if in the context we're not talking about men but boys, then it could be the good boy, or maybe the good dude, okay? But any of those things are singular because it's masculine singular adjective, right? And then each of these are gendered terms to reflect that this is a masculine singular substantival adjective. But let's contrast that with the second one. I have bona, amat, amicum. That's accusative, feminine, singular, direct object noun. Somebody loves her friend, her girlfriend. But who? Well, bona is nominative case, so it's the subject, but it's one feminine singular entity that's being described by the adjective good. So I can't just say the good. I need to specify something because it's feminine singular. Now, I could say the good one to specify the singular, but that doesn't give me the feminine representation, does it? So I could also say, if the context is clear, I could say the good one, and you already understand I'm talking about a woman, but I could also say the good woman. Or if in the context we're talking about young women, I could say the good girl or the good dudette. All right? Now on the third example, boni amantamicos. There, this is accusative masculine plural direct object. So, and boni is masculine plural nominative as well. So, good masculine plural people love their friends. Now, how do I represent that? I could say the good love their friends, but I could also say the good ones or the good men to make it absolutely clear that we have a plural form. And in the case of using men, the good men, we're also making sure that it's known that it's masculine plural substantival adjective. And then the last example, bonai amantamicas. Here, amicus is accusative feminine plural, so that's the direct object. Someone loves their girlfriends. And then bonai is feminine plural nominative. And so who does the loving here? A feminine plural group that are being described using substantival adjectives. I could say the good ones, or the good women, or maybe the good girls, right? Love their girl friends. So, this is the sort of extra words you might use when you're translating a substantival adjective.